The Isle of Wight forms a diamond in the English Channel, about 3 miles off the south coast of mainland Britain. Its shape and position are such that clouds tend to disperse overhead as they drift in from the Atlantic, letting abundant natural light shine through. This is indeed the sunniest spot in the UK, with a unique microclimate where the surrounding sea intensifies that light by reflection while insulating the interior from winter cold snaps and summer heat waves. All of which, says Paul Thomas, makes it perfect for growing tomatoes. Paul is Managing Director of Isle of Wight Tomatoes, based close to the centre of the island on a site that covers 27 hectares of glasshouses, all producing variations of that one particular fruit.
We grow conventionally, but we also grow organically. But our point of difference is flavour. It's about growing premium tomatoes that taste.
Commercial tomato farming began on the island in the 1960s, and a few greenhouses from that period still operate today, as well as the ever more extensive facilities built in the 80s, 90s and 2000s. Paul's own story began more than 15 years ago.
And back in 2007, we had a big new product development program where we were growing probably about 150 to 200 new varieties. And at the time, there wasn't a commercial home for those varieties, so the UK food scene was just changing at the time. And there were some small artisanal food markets opening in London, one being called Borough Market. So we hatched a plan to take some of those tomatoes directly to the consumer, and people just went mad for the tomatoes. You know, people were saying things like, oh, these smell like the ones my granddad used to grow. I think up until then, people had fallen out of love with tomatoes in the UK, and we're looking for those varieties that really gave that flavour. And because they were trial varieties, that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to find varieties that really had that pack of flavour. So back then it was really exciting because there was lots of other small kind of artisanal producers in the UK just starting up, whether it's cheese producers, meat producers, and we'd all congregate every Saturday morning in London. And then a real foodie, customer base would come down and you'd talk to the customer. We'd have celebrity chefs coming down and buying product from us. It was great. It was a good time to be. But also, it was at that point you realise that we really had something special. And from that, we started to develop a business and a brand.
In the years since, Isle of Wight Tomatoes has continued to experiment with colours, textures, shapes and sizes.
We wanted to try and change the way in which people perceive tomatoes, not just being something that you had on the side of your plate or you ate just loose on their own, but actually to create a whole meal experience. You can cook with tomatoes. If you take a mixed pack that's got 5 or 6 different varieties in, all of those varieties have their own sort of personality, characteristics, and actually that can make a really, really good dish. You only need a really good ingredient to make a really simple, good dish, and that's what we tried to do.
The company works with seed houses from around the world to test new varietals that might be the next big flavour breakthrough. Contenders are given a season to see how they grow, how they hold up to pests and diseases, and how they taste according to an expert panel convened every summer. A good score might mean a larger scale trial before a final decision is made on taking that tomato to market. Recent graduates of note include a beef tomato that shows pineapple yellow on the outside, then deep red when you cut into it. And a pink tomato from a Japanese breeding program with an especially thin skin. Several of the most popular types grown here are shipped out to Spinneys, including large vine, cherry on the vine, and large plum tomatoes, as well as speciality products like heritage beefsteaks.
So the relationship with Spinneys and the Isle of Wight Tomato Company started back in 2023. So it's a relatively new relationship. We visited them and we were blown away by the range of tomatoes, the flavours, the colours, the varieties. We've not seen such eclectic mixes of tomatoes ever before. So we really loved them when we first met up, and we've been working with them, developing new flavours, new varieties, and also Spinneys' own label.
When it comes to the actual growing of these extraordinary tomatoes, another Paul Howlett, has developed his expertise in that area.
I've been growing tomatoes here on the Isle of Wight for the last 37 years. When I started there was just 2.5 hectares of glass, and I thought I would do this job for a few weeks, and 37 years later I'm still here. I've done every job there is to do. I've done the picking of the tomatoes, the training and trimming of the tomatoes. I've been on the glasshouse roofs, cleaning the glass. So I've worked my way up through the company, and for the last probably the last 15 or so years I've been head of production.
Today, Paul oversees both conventional and organic crops. The former are ripened inside grow bags and fed everything they need, while the latter grow in certified organic soil, taking all their nutrients the natural way, no artificial elements allowed. Without recourse to pesticides, Paul and his team have done a lot of work over the years with biological control. Another way to put this, using good bugs to control bad bugs. But the truly indispensable heroes of the glasshouse are the bumblebees.
Without bees, there would be no tomatoes because the bees do the pollination. We've been using bumblebees in the glasshouses probably for about 30 years. Before that, we used to do hand pollination, so every plant every week had to be shaken to shake the pollen out, and now the bees do that for us, and they do a much better job than we ever did.
Another key point of difference between Isle of Wight tomatoes and most other producers, says Paul, is the soil-deep sustainability of the process itself. There is no such thing as crop rotation here, as one harvest follows another, always tomatoes after tomatoes. The company makes all its own compost from all its own waste, uses biological string where other growers use plastics, and it also sources sustainable coir for conventional tomatoes, the outer husk of coconut shells from a specialist provider in Sri Lanka. The water used here comes from falling rain. Sunny as it is, the island gets plenty, all harvested from the glasshouse roof and reservoirs that fill up through the wetter months to be used in the main growing season. Paul can talk a visitor through the whole cycle with a gentle pastoral note of devotion to his life's work. How the individual seeds are grafted, sown and spliced, how the 50-day-old plants are arrayed throughout the glasshouses to flower within a couple of weeks and left to ripen for 10 or 12 weeks before harvesting. The conventional lit crops are planted earlier than the unlit, as early as September, in custom glasshouses that were the first in the UK to operate with an all-LED lighting system back in 2015. Picture the Isle of Wight at night then, in the darkest, coldest months, a full moon shining on that diamond island in a black sea, and right at its heart, a glasshouse glowing like a lantern. And inside, a festival of fruit growing in all the colours of Christmas. The best tomatoes to be found anywhere on this line of latitude.